What is up, Pyromaniacs? Biostasis here. We are back in, I guess, the world of Home Lab, which is where we're constructing our Linux lab, getting everything set up, and kind of progressing forward. And I've made some progress since yesterday. Yesterday, I basically uploaded the video, letting you guys know kind of what the plans are for this server, where I'm hoping to be over the next, 3 to 6 months, and some of basically the lab that we're working on. There's a link in the first video if you have not checked it out. It's also on the main splash screen of the channel, so you can head on over there and see it. I got to get the art redone, but it's kind of a low priority at the moment. I know it shows TDK Minecraft and shit. Just ignore that stuff and just look at the videos. So anyways, I did want to show you guys basically what I worked on today. So what I worked on today, let's load this up, is I did get... Oh my god, he's logging in as root. Why are you doing that? You shouldn't do that. Oh my god. Well, I have another account set up that I'll be using, but I don't want to give out the login name for that. So just in case somebody manages to find my password and is smart enough to figure out how to get things, I don't want my boxes to be hit, several thousand times a day. Anyways, this is Putty. For those guys who are not familiar with Putty, Putty is an SSH client. It allows you to remote in. Centos basically from the get-go has this set up and you are good to go. You can connect, you can, do whatever you want to do. I believe I can open up 2 Putty clients. I can, let's see, trying to find the other Dell server. Who's the name? I can't remember at the moment. All right, let's make sure this is it. So we click here, we click load. Okay, yes, that's the same one. Click open. Okay, so this is the one we're connected to right here. You can see it's 178. And this is the one that we're connecting to right now. So, yes, that's fine. And whoops. Shit. That's probably not going to work. Hey, there we go. Oh, boy. So, yeah, right here. My my server is automatically open, and we're gonna go over that here in a second. But this is just today, in the last couple hours. So this is something I'm going to be very, very careful with, and it's something you need to be careful with, especially with what I'm about to show you guys. So what I have here are basically the 2 servers that I have set up at the moment. I have more servers, but this is the first 2 that we're starting with. These bad boys are, I like it, shows the last, from Asian Pacific Telephone Company. Oh, geez. I wonder what they're doing. So this is allows me basically to remote into these computers and use them, as if they were my own. Now, I'm hoping to fix this problem right here as well with my issue that I'm fixing to have. So, port forwarding. Now, for those of you guys who don't know, basically your router acts as a public IP address. So my router is publicly visible to the internet. It is a public IP. All IPs that are out there are public, for the most part. You know what they are, because it's just numbers, 72.39.147.20 is an IP address. So there are a million billion, there's an actual fixed number, but there's a shit ton of IP addresses out there. Some of them are routable, some of them are non-routable. Now, a routable IP address is an IP address that you can enter and access. So, you can access it publicly, whereas an internal IP address like 192.168.1.178, you will not be able to access the server because this is the internal IP address. So basically your router it's a firewall, and it acts as kind of a door to the internet. So people enter your address to the main door, like your front door, so to speak, which is your router, and then they access things inside. Well, the problem is the internet doesn't know what is behind that front door. So much like your house, somebody who knocks on your door has no idea what's on the inside. They know, certain ports are going to be open, et cetera, but they don't know what you actually have. They don't know I have, the computers that I have, the servers that I have, et cetera. Now, once you open one of these ports and basically, well, not open one of the ports, because most of the time some of these ports are open by default, but What I'm talking about here is, and I'm gonna just trying to make sure that I don't give any information away that I don't want to give away. Port forwarding, and I don't think I'm going to show this. Port forwarding is a way to basically take a port on the external side and route it to a specific computer. So, right, for instance, if you enter my IP address, which I'm not going to give you, that's going to get you to my router, but it doesn't get you to one of my computers. So, for instance, and that's why a lot of times if you've ever hosted a Minecraft server or something else, and your friend tries to connect to it, they can't connect to it. It's because your computer doesn't know, or your router doesn't know which computer or which device to send that to, because your router is like, hey, there's a request for a server here, and I got, 8 devices, 3 iPhones, 2 desktops, an Xbox, a PlayStation, and 2 smart TVs, and 3, iPads. I don't know what to send it to. Well, with port forwarding, you're telling your router, hey, if you get a request from port 22 or, port 143 or port, whatever, 20156, 165, forget which one is the Minecraft server. Anyways, if you get a request from that port, I want you to go to this internal IP. And that's why this one right here has failed login attempts and this one doesn't. I've opened this one up, so if you connect to the SSH port, which is port 22, then you bounce off this computer and then you get the ability to log in. Root is it's not publicly available. Everybody knows that a Linux box has root. So what these fuckwats in certain countries, mainly Asian countries, do is they scan for open, basically the IPs, look for an open port that they can connect to. Once they connect to it, they start running brute force hacks. Right now you've got 78 login attempts. Once they figure out that you're a valid connection, this can be in the hundreds of thousands of connections, because as far as I'm aware, by default, Linux doesn't kick you off for trying. So like, for right now, you could try and connect to this as many times as you wanted to, and it's basically you're running a script and you're trying every single password that you can think of. They have a variety of different, libraries and dictionary attacks and things like that they run through. So, if they wanted to get on here, they could run several thousand attempts a second to try and get into it. But, the longer your password is, obviously, if you've got a 65 character password, it's going to take them, the heat death of the universe probably before they can get in to do that. Now, there's ways to counter this. You can set up to where after a certain number of login attempts, your IP address is not allowed to connect, which they can fix by just, VPNing or proxying and things like that. You can set it up to where it will lock out an account after a certain number of attempts. The problem with that is if you're trying to log into that account and that account's locked, now you can't get in, and this dickbag locks you out. We actually had that problem on TDK Network. Is we set it up to where after a certain number of attempts, it would lock that username, which is dumb because it then locked us out of the box, and it took us a while to get back into that one. That was thankfully, I think Lem had a back way in through a couple administrator accounts and was able to get back in. So my understanding, the counter to this is, like I said, you're not going to be able to access these until you port forward. But once you do, you can access it remotely and everyone else can. So keep that in mind. The key thing is if it's a home lab and you're not accessing it remotely, don't fucking port forward. Then they can't get to you. Not as easily. I mean, if your router has a vulnerability, then they can still pop you, but it's drastically harder. The only time I will open this up is when I am connecting remotely. Like I do have some downtime at work occasionally, or if I'm imaging a computer, that might take an hour. It gives me something to play around with. So the issue that we run into is, and this is a separate issue, is, okay, so we have 2 different servers on the network. I connect with port 22 and that goes to this server. Well, what if I want to access this server? Well, the router's not smart enough to, be able to change the port. So what I believe there is a way to do, and I haven't been able to figure this out yet. I do have a nice Cisco switch. It's I'll bring it over here in a second so you guys can see. One sec. Again, just trying to make sure that there's no identifiable information over here that I don't want you guys seeing. I don't think it has a public IP address or anything like that. It's also not up to date. I need to update it, but this is my switch right here. It is a 52 port gigabit switch from Cisco. There's the model number right there. And what I'm trying to do is my servers are located on different ports. These are different interfaces here. So you can see, this port 1, port 2, port 3. Well, actually, it's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, et cetera, et cetera. What I want to do is if my router gets let's say I do port 2325 or whatever, or 2222. If my router gets port 2222, it sends it to this port and then changes it to port 22. And so, for instance, all traffic from external source of 2222 goes to this port or whichever port my server is located on, and then it resolves, it passes through as port 22. So then my switch, or not my switch, my server then thinks it's just getting standard port 22 traffic, and you're good to go. Unfortunately, I haven't figured out how to do that yet. It does not look like my router can do it. My router can do port triggering, which I don't quite understand. And I'm not smart enough yet with Cisco stuff to figure out how to do that type of stuff. I know it's possible, but it might actually have to be on the Linux level. Now, what I tried to do on Linux was, is this it? Don't know if this is it. Yes, this is one of the guides I believe I was looking at. I know y'all can't see it yet. I'll be moving it over so you guys can see here in a second. Actually, that's not the one I was looking at. Well, shit. Yeah, I don't think I thought this was it. Huh. Yeah. Yeah, I just wanted to show you guys real quick. Let me drag this over. These are all the windows I've had open today, trying to figure out how to do different things. And this is basically what I was doing right here. And I couldn't quite get it figured out. I was trying to edit this right here, etc. SSH, SSHD config. This is the configuration for the port that your SSH server uses. So for right now, let me open this back up. When you connect to like right here, we're connected to port 22, and right here we're connected to port 22. Well, I need that off port 22 for a couple reasons. One, I'd like it off port 22 so these dickbags don't know what port to access. I mean, granted, if they really knew about me, they could sit here on my router and scan every possible port until they found the port and then try it that way. But this, for the most part, it's easier for them to just scan for open ports. In here for known ports, for SSH ports. So if I move the port, then it makes it to where they can't really find me. The problem, yes, here it is. Here it is. This is the walkthrough I was going through. So basically what I did is VI is a editing program that comes with Linux. You edit the SSH config, which looks exactly like this. And you can see right here in these little hashtags right here, or pound signs, if you're old like me, they comment out. So basically this right here doesn't exist because it's commented out. Well, if you do port 34627, which is not what I used or what I'm using, I didn't get it to work anyway, then that changes the port of the SSH server. So then your computer or your Linux SSH server moves to 34627. Now the problem is that didn't work. Specifically right here, this could not find the SSH service. Now both of these worked. I could see with netstat that my port was correct. So it's running on port 22, but it's not updating, obviously, because I can't restart the service because this doesn't do it, and I couldn't figure out where it was because there's a billion services. I had to go and figure out, what's the command to see services. I was like, well, shit, I'll just find the service. So there's like 600 services. I was like, oh, yeah, that's not going to work. I believe this right here is part of the issue. Is you go in to this policy core utilities, and this allows you to listen to this port 34627. Basically, I believe this is the SSH or the Linux firewall internal. The problem, though, is even after changing this port and restarting Linux, when I did these right here again, it showed that SSH was down. So like right now, this is really cool, by the way, little trick. If you highlight this, that copy and paste it, then you can just right click right here and it will paste in. Did it not? What did it just do? There we go. All right, so whoops, did I hit am I logged in? Or did we time out? I think we timed out. Yeah, all right, let's try that here. There we go. So you can see right here, port 22, port 22. Yeah, I don't know what happened with this one. We'll go ahead and close it for now. So that's port 22. And then if we use this command here, you can see we're also on port 22, port 22. So this is the listening port, and I believe this is the receiving port. It's receiving TCP packets as opposed to UDP packets. That's networking and such, which you may or may not be familiar with. So we're listening and receiving on port 22, but when I changed this port in the file and restarted Linux, this no longer worked. I'd enter this, whoops, shit. I'd enter that command and this stuff would no longer show up, which to me means that service is no longer running. So I'm not sure what I did wrong. Maybe there's something else with CentOS. I tried, like I said, I was looking at like doing a port forwarding type deal where port 23 comes in and port goes out. But after messing around with it, and especially after seeing those logins from, you know, our great glorious leader over in North Korea, I think I've decided I'm probably just going to leave my network private. It's a little bit safer that way. At least for now, because, you know, right now I'm a freaking Linux virgin. So I'm like a passed out cheerleader at a frat party, and I make a mistake and somebody's going to pop me. So that's kind of where we're at for now. I think I'm going to give up on SSH remote access for the moment, unless one of you guys can kind of recommend a guide that makes it easy to change the SSH service port in Linux. Or if any of you guys are familiar with how to, you know, well, no, that won't work either. Because the other problem, like I said, is that I'm running is even if I get this fixed, I still have the issue of the people logging in. So what I need to do is I need to get, from my understanding, there's a way to like remove root, or at least change root from root to a different login, so that like root access is no longer root. Like you change it to, you know, for instance, pyrostasis would be root. If you change that, then they don't know a login straight up. You know, they can try all day on root. There's no root account. I don't know how to do that. Something else I would like to do, you know, and then I want to figure out a way to mitigate these brute force attacks so I don't have to worry about that. So until I figure out a way to safely mitigate the brute force attacks, like I said, I think I'm just going to disable the SSH access because it just seems smarter to me that way. So if you decide to open up SSH so that, you know, you can connect remotely, like maybe while you're at work or on your lunch break or something like that, do keep in mind the second you do that, some dickbag in somewhere, you know, I don't want to hate on the Asian countries, even though it's primarily them. You know, it could be some Russian hackers or, you know, somebody else. Hell, even some homegrown American script kiddies might be trying to get into it. So keep that in mind. Anytime you open up those ports to where people can access them, you run the risk of having your box compromised. And then once it's compromised, you know, they can do whatever the hell they want with it. You know, they can run crypto miners on it. They can just watch and see what you do and steal your information. They can, you know, use your bandwidth to do, you know, DDoS attacks on services if they want. It's, you know, and then the cops come knocking. It's like, hey, you know, why are you sending? Well, obviously your traffic probably would be in the grand scheme of things rather small, but you get the idea. It's not something that you want to do. So I'm going to go ahead and delete both of those ports off of my port forwarding list. Perfect. So now I don't have to worry about it. So yeah, definitely still looking for some information here. So our next step, you know, now that we've got CentOS 7 installed, my next step is, and I can access it with PuTTY, which is awesome. Oh my God. And I I was so tempted to install a GUI version of Linux server, but I need to know the command lines. I need to learn the command lines, and living in this interface is the true Linux experience. I think some people think. So, as much as, for those of you guys who don't know, Hyper-V is awesome. It's so easy. It's a little window. You can see all your VMs there. Comparatively to Linux, it is a lot more user friendly from the get go. But at the same time, you come in to run with all the problems that Windows does, the extra performance issues, the vulnerabilities, oh yeah, we updated this month and oops, some people's files are missing. Sorry guys, we're going to have to roll back the update. Yeah, fuck Microsoft. So there's problems with anything and everything you use. So anyways, first goal succeeded. Centos is installed. Both servers are up. Both servers can be accessed remotely, and really remotely from North Korea if I want to, or just locally here in the house. Now I've got to get a hypervisor running, which is going to be our next setup. Like I said in my first video, it's probably not going to be daily videos here, and I'll probably get a webcam set back up here so you guys can see my ugly mug while I ramble and rant and rave about this shit. But yeah, that's our current status update. So 2 Dell servers running with Centos 7. Both of them got SSH running so we can access them remotely. We're running into problems with security. We're running into problems with remote access and changing ports, and figuring out how to change the default SSH ports. So like I said, if you have some tips for either of those, feel free to leave them in the comments section below, or shoot me a PM on Twitter or wherever you like, and I'll look into those. If I manage to use your tip and it works and doesn't get me butt fucked by North Korea, I will happily give you a shout out in my next video. But yep, our next goal, my next main goal, now that I've re-secured my network, is to focus on getting the hypervisor up. And then once we got the hypervisor up, we're going to start playing around with some virtual machines. So I'll be covering all that in the next video, which will be slightly more tutorial oriented and a little less blog oriented probably. And I'm going to showcase, how I did it, how I figured it out. We'll post that up, and then I'm sure some of you guys will tell me how I'm doing it wrong. Anyways, folks, that's going to do it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you guys are enjoying this series. If you do, please slap that like button. Make sure you subscribe, and I'll catch you guys in the next clip.